Well, are debt collectors making it easy to get rid of debt? Today we're going to take a look. Stay tuned for Prudent Money. Good afternoon and welcome to the Prudent Money Radio Show. I'm your host, Bob Brooks. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Well, working with debt collectors and negotiating payoffs is not an easy process. Yet for whatever reason, it has become a little bit simpler. Wayne Sanford, also known as the Credit Guy, is here today to discuss what he is seeing. Hey, Wayne, welcome to Prudent Money.
Thanks for having me.
You know, before we get started, I'd love to, you told me a story about a life hack that you discovered for credit cards. Talk a little bit about that, how you saved a few dollars.
Sure, yeah. I mean, it's not anything earth-shattering, but a lot of times people just don't know. I just recently got a credit card annual fee for literally $95, and I was just in one of those moods where I'm like, yep, that's not going to work. So I picked up the phone and got a hold of customer service and said, hey, I'm thinking of canceling this credit card. I need you to transfer me to that department. They transfer you to a special department that they have, which ultimately is retention. Told them what the issue was, that I don't think $95 is justified, and I want to talk about canceling the card. They, without even blinking, in 5 seconds offered to cut it in half. I said, you know what, that's fair, and that was almost $50.
You know, this is just a disclaimer that I'm going to make because of a story that I heard back during 2008 in the financial crisis. First one is, can't guarantee that this will work. If you get them to do it, I wouldn't start asking them if they will negotiate interest rates and payments. This listener went and did that with a credit balance on his credit card, and they threw him into collections and shut that account down. It was unbelievable. Thought he was a risk now. So we'll just say it worked great for you. Maybe or maybe not. It won't work great. That was my.
You know what I mean? At the end of the day, they want to retain you. So
yeah,
if they say
right.
no, then they say no. Yeah.
Well, let's talk a little bit about debt collectors. You deal with them all the time and, of course, represent people who are in debt. What are you seeing today during that negotiating process?
Typically, some of the best times when you can negotiate to sometimes get stronger discounts is usually the end of the month, because at the end of the day, it's basically a sales office. They're trying to get their numbers up. What I'm noticing, at least in December, is even the companies that are a little bit more stringent, let's say, I'm getting more aggressive discounts. Now, these are typically either paid in one payment or, worst case scenario, two. But I'm starting to see them getting a little bit more aggressive. Don't know if that's just because they see something happening down the road, possibly in the current market that's going on, or it's just end of the quarter, end of the calendar year. Either way, definitely seeing some stronger discounts for my people.
So, you know, one thing that I think is important for listeners to know, and I don't think a lot of people know this, Wayne, is that if a debt collector forgives a debt, you are taxed by the IRS on that settled debt. Are there any times where that might not be the case?
Well, what they end up telling you is, and they have to do this by law, any debt forgiven that's over $600, they will always say can be reported to the IRS as written off debt, which would be considered income by the IRS. Many times they do, many times they don't. The times that they don't, they're basically keeping that bad debt on the books to offset profits. So it's beneficial to them, not necessarily you. If they do officially 1099 you, then yes, you definitely want to provide that to your CPA or upload it into whatever software that you're using, because you will have to pay taxes on that.
You know, the ideal situation is that you get a settlement, you come to an agreement on an amount, and at least I think it is, most people don't have the money sitting around to pay for the debt. So having a monthly payment plan is an ideal situation. What, in these negotiations, how likely is it that you would actually get a payment plan versus having to pay a lump sum?
They're willing to do that. I mean, if you think about it, even if you have an account that's 120 days late, it's getting close to the next 45 plus days for it to charge off. That lender will actually offer you a fairly aggressive discount and even break it sometimes into I've seen anywhere from 3 to 12 months. Now, that's the original creditor. The collection companies or the debt buyers, they obviously want all the money up front if they can get it, and then argue with you. And it's not like if you're a good talker, they're going to help. That'll help you get a better discount. The power is being taken away from the people that you're talking to. All they're doing is what the computer tells them to. So if you don't know the flow chart, it becomes a challenge.
And let's talk a little bit about the bookkeeping here with the debt collectors. I mean, do you feel pretty good about, if someone puts you on a payment plan that it's going to go like it's supposed to, and you're going to actually get to a point where you pay it off, and they are keeping good books?
I haven't seen or heard of any settlement package, whether it's 3 months, 12 months, or 2 years when they make their payments, and that they don't do it. They don't do anything shady. Their job is they want to collect money. They buy these debts according to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for 2 to 4 cents on the dollar. And if they've got someone that took, that they were able to get their hands on, so to speak, and pay them, then they're happy with that. They'd love the money up front, but they're okay with having several thousand, tens of thousands of people paying $50 to $100 a month too. Yep.
So what happens with the credit report once that deal is done?
They'll post that the account's showing either paid and settled or just settled. It'll reflect the zero balance. A lot of people are under the impression that it gets deleted. Sometimes yes, many, many times no. And my standard phrase is a credit report is like a thumbprint. Every thumbprint is different. If your friend did this and he went up 85 points, you did the same thing, you may only go up 15 points.
Yeah, because there's no one credit report is alike, and the best way to say it. How can you make sure something like that does happen? You're not getting the full representation on your credit report. Do you have any ways to force the debt collector to report it correctly?
I mean, there is the Fair Debt Collection Practice Act, you have the Fair Credit Billing Act, you have the Fair Credit Reporting Act. There are some federal laws as well as in Texas. We have the Texas Finance Code. Think of that almost as a lighter version of the Fair Credit Reporting Act. Majority of the times, they're usually going to report fairly correct information. The thing that really throws people off is when they buy the report from a third-party company, the company's paying, and they're only paying for a certain amount of filters. So you look at a report directly from the credit bureaus, and you look at the third-party report, like let's just say a company called like ScoreSense or Credit Karma. You're going to see different bits of information. Now, that's where the challenging can be done. Like I tell everyone, at the end of the day, unless you're a victim of identity theft, that's your stuff. You probably didn't pay for whatever life-crazy challenge that got thrown at you. However, it doesn't matter what happened, that has to be 100% accurate in its reporting, which then gives you the ability to say, we need to look into this.
So, I've heard of a lot of situations where that debt gets resolved, but yet it ends up, maybe a couple of years later showing back up and needs to be removed. Is that a pretty easy process to go through?
It's sort of starting from scratch. It depends on how old the account is. So let's just say, as an example, you have two collection companies, Company A and Company B. They report an account to the bureaus on whatever the account is, and they created their own account number, and it's under their own account number. If it gets removed or they lose the contract, it'll go to Collection Company B and then get re-reported under a different number and a different major account number, that's where the, oh my God, it came back kind of thought process. Many times, if one thing wasn't done correctly, it's very possible it's going to happen again, but there's no guarantee that says some credit repair companies say, hey, look, we removed it. Well, it's also could be the fact that they lost their contract and then it was re-reported 45 days later under the new one. But the bottom line is you can always dispute the information. I guess that's probably the best way to go. Sure, and there's a lot of, obviously, social media right now. You have every quote-unquote expert that's out there they're quoting some federal laws and actually saying this is the secret sauce, this is it. The other side has got lawyers too. And they're a lot more equipped than we are, and unfortunately laws are written or they're sponsored, which means they have to be paid, and most of the time those sponsored people are the ones that are actually doing the reporting. So it's definitely an uphill battle. This is where, like I always jokingly tell people, I got 21 years of experience of seeing everything. So it's always going to be a challenge. Yeah, I wish I could blink my eyes.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. You know I do appreciate it. Talking to Wayne Sanford. He's called the Credit Guy for good reason. And if you want more information on Wayne, WayneTheCreditGuy.com is the best place to go. That's still the best place to go, isn't it, Wayne?
Yes, that's the easiest
one.
Okay.
Now, let's talk a little bit. You've mentioned this already, and I think it makes sense to go through and define who these people are, define their roles, because they all kind of fall on the timeline of a debt. Talk a little bit about, you've mentioned earlier, who the debt buyer is, a third-party debt collector, or even the original creditor. Where do they all fit in?
Sure. Well, obviously the original creditor, and let's just use Capital One Bank as an example since they're one of the bigger ones. Capital One Bank clearly labeled as the original creditor. If your account goes to collection status, which could be anything from 30 days on to 90, 120 days late, a lot of times what they will do is they will outsource it to a third-party collection company. They're primarily just making the phone calls. They're not doing any credit reporting because Capital One is actually reporting. If the account gets charged off, which in credit card terms is 6 months of no payment, they could sue. They could just keep trying to collect or sell the debt to a debt buyer who, like we mentioned before, may buy the debt for 2 to 4 cents on the dollar, and then now the debt buyer is the new owner of the debt that can collect or sue.
And I think what's important for people to know is it's if you're going to do something about the debt, you got to know who owns it, and not just assume that the original creditor. I mean, they kind of get out early on in the process. Is that accurate?
A lot of times they don't want to mess with anything, so they'd rather just sell the debt for some pennies right off the debt. Sell the debt, and then it's somebody else's problem, which obviously it's always becomes your problem now. And then they could just move on. It's just an easier way for their books. And again, they don't have to. A lot they do, a lot they don't. They'll just pick a portfolio and say, hey, we're going to sell it. And that debt buyer buys it. They may pick that portfolio and say, hey, we're going to sue everyone in this debt portfolio, whether it's a $300 bill or $30,000 bill.
Let's talk a little bit about the statute of limitations period, because this, to me, from where I sit and talking to people, this is the really important number to know exactly when this is, because it gives you a lot of options at that point. I think that's fair to say. Talk a little bit about what the statute of limitations period is and the positives that come for lasting through it. I think that's the best way to say it.
Yep. Well, on credit cards, an account is charged off after 6 months of non-payment. So 6 months from that charge-off date, we'll use Texas as an example, you can be sued up to 4 years. So January 1st of 2025, account gets charged off, you can be sued for up to 4 years. So 2028, January 2nd, you can no longer be sued. I've seen, unfortunately, some law firms come swooping in when it's 2 weeks away from the statute of limitations expiring. And basically the statute of limitations means, yes, they can keep it on your credit for 7 years, but you can't be sued any longer. And every
which is
state is a little different, but 4 years is solid across the board.
Yeah, and I guess that if you're looking at it from the standpoint, that's kind of the goal to get through that 4.5 years. I'm not encouraging anybody to not pay their debt, but in the game of debt collection, the goal is to get past the legal aspects of it. Is that fair?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, when we talk to a customer and we look at a report, and let's say it's something fairly large at $10,000 change, I usually tell them if it's under 4 years, I would rather not mess with it because we don't want to poke the bull.
Sure.
Is it possible that, the two parties may not talk, the legal department with the reporting department? Yes, but do you really want to take that chance?
So is there any type of situation that you could start that period up, start it over again?
Yes, if you make the mistake or get tricked into making a payment. I've seen people that get talked into making a payment, and it's about 4.5 years later, and that restarts the 4-year clock.
Man.
I don't usually see them get sued again, but that does put them in a position where now they legally can be sued, because it's not when the account was charged off. It was the last time there was a payment after the charged off account.
So let's talk about a situation, because there's a lot of people who have moved from California to Texas. Let's say that you had a debt in California, it went bad, and you now move to Texas. Which statute of limitations period do you follow, California or Texas?
Sure. Literally dealing with this as we speak, and they're actually trying to do an enforcement. So the couple lived in California. It's where the debt was acquired. So if it was acquired in California, then that's where the lawsuit statute of limitations kicks in. It just so happens California is the same as Texas, 4 years. The couple ended up sending me some paperwork. They disappeared for a little bit, came back, and they sent me the paperwork showing, hey, they were sued, judgment was issued, and now they're trying to enforce it, but then they realized that they no longer live in the state, so you can't have a California attorney file to collect funds from someone that no longer lives in the state. So they're most likely in the process of getting a partnership with the Texas law firm to do this.
Gets
Texas,
very complicated.
Yep, and just so everyone knows out there, you cannot have your wages garnished in Texas. The only thing they can do, however, is they can freeze your bank account. Now, it doesn't happen in the blink of an eye. You will get some paperwork, and it looks like they're asking for everything, including your blood type. That is a discovery of finding out what your assets are, and you probably have a few months from you when you get that paperwork to have that happen to you and, in essence, prepare, and that's all I'm going to tell you at that point.
So tell me this, though. I was always under the impression that they had to have had a successful judgment filed against them to be able to go in and freeze bank accounts and things like that.
They do, but what happens is most people, and I'm actually seeing this a little bit more often, or lawsuit gets filed, and typically when you're served, and it's not like TV, they don't have to walk up to you. You know, that's TV. The code, the Civil Procedure Code, it's my understanding, is they make 3 attempts at your last known residence, and hopefully that's not an old credit card, and then you moved recently because they're serving somewhere else. Are there ways to challenge that? Yes, most people don't bother, but once they file suit, you've got 20 days to respond, and if you don't, they're automatically sending in a paper, another motion to the judge saying, hey, we want summary judgment. Basically, the judge goes, hey, they never responded, they're technically in default, they're requesting that I grant this motion so they wouldn't even have to show up to court again. Automatically, you're at fault, and then you lose. That's what they've been trying to do even before. I actually saw a summary judgment filed a week after, and the papers weren't even served. So they're definitely not. They're trying to go to court and not go to court at the same time and still collect more money.
I guess that makes sense somewhere.
Business-wise, yeah.
what if you're in a situation where you know what the dates are, but you have nothing to prove it? You don't have the right bill, or you don't have the right documentation. I mean, what do you do at that point?
You don't have the documentation to prove that it's not yours?
Let's say that you have a debt collector that's trying to attempting to sue you.
Gotcha.
And you know you're out of the statute of limitations period, but you don't have anything to really prove it. What do you do in that situation?
Sure. So technically not legal advice, but what you would want to do is you would respond as the court, because the court's requesting you to respond once you've been served. The response should be something as simple as, hey, Mr. Court, hey, Mr. Judge, we are responding as you are requested. However, this account is over the statute of limitations. We haven't seen or dealt with this account in 4.5, 5.5 years, whatever the case may be. And then you can simply say, we're requesting that the plaintiff provide proof that that this is passed. Now, this is also a trick on their end, because the judge doesn't know. If they file and you don't respond, the judge says you're guilty, because you never contacted the court to let anyone know. You just stuck your head in the sand. So hiding is usually the worst thing you can do, and it's
right.
what most people want to do.
So go ahead.
I was going to say it's just very I have a lady. I'll tell you the story right now, really quick. She's sort of the grandmother of a client. She's like 90 years old. She is being sued. She's got 3 forms of terminal cancer. They're telling her they're going to sue her, and we're going to do this, or this. We had her, send everything over to me. She's on Social Security and disability. That's the only income that she has, which is actually exempt. So I'm helping them right now dismiss the suit. But needless to say, I wasn't very nice to them.
If you want to talk to Wayne, you can always go to his website. Lots of great information there. WayneTheCreditGuy.com. I'm assuming, Wayne, that when a debt collector does file a lawsuit against you or trying to get a judgment, that the most important thing that you got to do is take action. But I guess that is contacting an attorney, someone who's qualified to help you, and just let them take it from there. I guess, and I'm assuming that can be somewhat expensive.
What's funny is there's people that actually, you'll find out that you're being sued from the advertisements you're getting in the mail prior to the paperwork, because you have lawyers. I'm not really a fan of these kind of lawyers. I like other lawyers, but they buy lists of people that have had lawsuits filed against them, and they send letters saying, hey, we can help represent you, we can do this, we'll help you fight this case. Surprisingly, now I'm not going to say everyone, of course, because that's wrong to say, but it seems majority, all they're doing is saying, hey, we should settle. And I'm like, you paid them how much to do what you were or could have done by yourself or with a little coaching? It's just that, unfortunately, that's just how life works.
So let me ask you this as we wrap it up, Wayne. You see you're in the space. You're seeing everything that's going on. Is it an indicator to you as, boy, the economy is really starting to go downhill? When it's just based on what you're seeing.
About a year ago.
I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, about a year ago, I noticed a lot more collection companies getting aggressive, filing more lawsuits. My personal opinion, and opinion is what it is that there may be seeing down the line that things are getting more and more expensive. And if we have some sort of a bubble that we may or may not hit, all of a sudden they're not going to be able to collect any money even if they sue. So is that possibly one of the reasons why they're getting a little bit more aggressive and giving bigger discounts, where they're being more flexible? It's always a possibility. Hard to say because you don't know the inner workings, but it raises my eyebrow, and it's definitely a concern that I see.
Wayne, great information. Once again, the website is WayneTheCreditGuy.com. Wayne, we'll look forward to having you back on the program again soon.
Sounds great. Appreciate you.
This is Bob Brooks, and you are listening to the Prudent Money Radio Show. Thank you so much for joining me today. I do appreciate it. If you have a question for me, please go to the website at prudentmoney.com and send it in, because we are all out of time. Till we do meet again next time, keep the faith and have a great rest of the day.
That's all the time we have for today. Questions or comments for Bob, or to find out more great information like what you've just heard, visit www.prudentmoney.com. Be sure to join Bob Brooks again for the next edition of Prudent Money.